Ayahuasca ceremony number 3 was the craziest night of my life, but not in a bad way because it shattered everything I thought was true. I literally, after the ceremony, I recorded me telling my friend while I was still under the influence of ayahuasca. I told him what my experience was like, the depth of the trip. And that was literally what I said to him. The craziest night of my life, but not in a bad way because it shattered everything I thought was true. Hello, hello. I am Kirsten. Welcome to Sobriety Bestie. If you haven't already seen it, I made a video about night 1 and 2 of the ayahuasca ceremonies that I did back in November 2022. I'll link it above if you want to watch it. The thing that I forgot to mention in that video, when I was inside the rocket ship, the spaceship, the UFO, whatever it was, what it appeared to be, when I was in there having what appeared to be brain surgery, you may want to watch that video. It was a little wild, the first night of ayahuasca. But what I forgot to mention in that video is that right before I had what appeared to be brain surgery is I had what appeared to be shoulder surgery. The machine backed up into my shoulder and it felt like inside my shoulder was being operated on. And I can't believe I forgot to mention this in the other video because the craziest thing about that, whether it's real or not, is it a hallucination? Is it a visionary experience? Is it reality? What's reality, right? I have not had shoulder pain since the first ceremony of ayahuasca. So I am healed. I am healed. Thank you, Mother Ayahuasca. The shoulder surgery, what appeared to be shoulder surgery, a tongue twister there, shoulder surgery in that first ayahuasca ceremony is it's done. It worked. I am so grateful that my shoulder has no pain after like almost a decade of having shoulder pain. So that happened. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the third ceremony because my first ceremony and my third ceremony were bigger ones and second and fourth were smaller ones because of the dose that I took, right? So I took a half of the regular dose for my third ceremony, which is how much I took in the first ceremony, which was plenty, which was more than enough in the first ceremony. So I might be one of those sensitive folks who doesn't need as much, or maybe I'm just not in a rush to, I don't know. Some people had 2 cups. I'm like, half is fine with me. I'd rather have less and have the option to drink more. So I had a half a cup. So I'm going to talk about onset now, coming onto ayahuasca. And I was jokingly referring to onset as Blastoff after the first experience, which it felt like I was being blasted somewhere, or a consciousness was being blasted inside of me or something, like I was taken off somewhere. And so the next couple of days at the retreat center, I was talking about Blastoff. Like, you can't say it's onset, it's Blastoff. We're like being blasted somewhere. So, I don't know how much of what I experienced in the third ceremony in the beginning is because I kept saying Blastoff. But then as soon as we all drank it, right? And then I sat down and the first time I drank it, night 1, it took about 40 minutes to feel anything. Night 3, like within 10 minutes, I was like, it's still light out. Like we're drinking it at sunset, like the ayahuasca. It's still a little bit light out, it's not quite dark in the room yet. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God. So we're 10 minutes in. I am like face down on my mat. I'm holding the bucket and I'm just like it sounded like I was throwing up, like I was purging from the depth of my being, but nothing was coming. It was air. Nothing was coming out of my mouth, but I was just like, whoa. I didn't actually, so the only thing that happened was I guess I just purged air. I didn't actually throw up all night or all week. I didn't throw up at all while I was there. So it hit me like a fucking truck. And let me actually wind up to that because before the truck hit, I knew it was going to hit. So the first night was overwhelming. I basically was on ayahuasca for 9 hours and most people were done at like 4 hours. So it like really rocked me. It was really intense. It was one long mind fuck and it was very, very potent and transformative as well. So I was nervous to take the same dose that I had the first night on the third night, right? Because I didn't want to go back to that mind fuckery. I really didn't want to go there, but I also wanted just to be open to the experience of anywhere I was going to go. So I drank it. And the minute that so I drank it and then I set my intentions of I just want to experience love. I just want to experience love. No mind fuckery, please, just love. That as soon as I drank it, it was like, I don't know, something in my body was just like, fight or flight, right? Like I wanted to flight. Like I wanted to get the fuck out of there. I wanted it the fuck out of my system. I'm swearing a lot. I wanted to puke. I wanted, not because the medicine was making me want to throw up, ayahuasca, because I just had this visceral feeling inside of me of get it out. It's going to come on strong. Oh my God, it's going to be so intense. And I just knew. I knew from the second it went in my mouth. So I went straight to the bathroom and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I contemplated like walking outside of the ceremony house, the Maloka. I contemplated walking outside and making myself throw up. I've never even made myself throw up ever in my life before. I just had this very strong urge to get the ayahuasca out of my system, like panic. I went into like a panic for like 5 minutes or something. And then I was like, well, let's just settle down and see where this takes us. So I don't go out there. I go onto my mat. I'm sitting there, and the next thing I know, I'm holding the bucket. I'm doing this like really like intense, like very physical purging of air. And I just can't get comfortable. And if I thought I kind of made fun of like the first night was Blastoff, this was like blasting off. And it might have been my karma. Like I kind of set that in motion from using those words. So, be careful with your words, right? So I blasted off. It was very intense, a lot of anxiety, a lot of very uncomfortable. It really felt like the first night where there was a lot of like, almost like a very, very vibration frequent, like energy moving through my system. And it was just really uncomfortable. And I because the first night was so brutal, I decided I was going to completely just relax and let whatever happened and not fight it at all, and not try to do it right or do it wrong, and just completely let go. And my technique to let go, which I found works for me, at least in the third night, right, was by relaxing my body. I'm just going to relax my body and let whatever happens happen. And so then the ayahuasca trip. So the first hour, I would say, so within 10 minutes, I was doing the dry air thing, and then it was like visionary. It was visionary like right away. And I just closed my eyes. I'm like, I'm just going to lay here basically like in Shavasana, like lay back on my mat, like on this like 3-inch foam mat in the room, right? So I'm just going to lay here and like let it go, let it rip, let it do what it's going to do. And I just like felt like, and it's kind of hard to explain a visionary experience, right? Because the language doesn't translate it. There isn't really words to describe the experience. So I'm going to do my best here and just explain it the best way that I know how in the moment, right? So it felt like, or it seemed to be that I was consciousness moving through dimensions, spaces, locations, that there was no other entities there. There were no beings. There was no what felt like a life forms there other than me. There was no things. It was all only like shapes and designs and colors and lights. And so I felt like I was kind of floating through almost like these huge dominoes, but they weren't like panels with designs on them, but they weren't dominoes. It was more like they were actually really cool looking. Like I thought, like, this is so cool. I want to remember this. Am I going to remember any of this stuff? Like, this is so cool. They were like metallic, like a dark metal color. And then they had this like really intricate, beautiful design in it that was almost like a rose gold, like outline making this design. And I thought the shape was super, super cool. And I wanted to remember the shape. And, I'll like flash forward a little bit. It turns out that there's like, now I'm calling it, and I don't know what it's called, but I'm calling it now in my own little head. Oh, that's the ayahuasca design, right? Because I had this experience where I was consciousness floating through these designs, these shapes but they weren't just moving in front of me. I was moving through them. And when we left the retreat, so now I'm kind of skipping forward. When we left the retreat, and we took the boat back down from the retreat center back down to Iquitos, the main jungle town in Peru, along the Amazon, right? Amazon River. So when we got back to the boat station and we docked and I got off and I was sitting there, I looked at the wallpaper at the boat station at the Amazon River and I'm like, oh my God, it's the design. Oh my God. So I called the shaman over. I'm like, that's the design, right? Like I was there. That's where I was. This design right here, I was going through it. I was like traveling through this design. Like that's ayahuasca, right? And he's like, he's like, yep. And then when we go into town, we go past like this tour. It's like there's this huge graffiti wall and it has that design on it. I'm like, this is the design. I'm like, this is. So it's not like I think that everyone's going to see that same design. I just had a very, very like cool experience where I was just like, wow, because it felt like I had no body. I had transcended like being cursed in a body as a human. And I was just like moving through these shapes. And then to see the shapes in like the regular world, like after the retreat, it was like, trip out, man. I'm not the only one who like goes through those shapes, I guess. So Yeah, and I don't think there's any rules, right? I don't think that, and I don't think it's the same for everybody. I'm not saying this is how it is. I'm just saying this is how it was for me at this specific time. And so it seemed like for about an hour, I was just consciousness, like kind of floating through, traveling through, like consciousness journeying through these light dimensions. I'm not sure what word to use there. These spaces, vast, open, like ever evolving. Let's just call them dimensions. I'm not sure what word I would put on this. I'm consciousness floating through this world, these worlds, but the worlds were changing, but not fast. It was more stable, where the first night it was just like I was like static and all this stuff was moving in my vision, right? This night, the third night, I had kind of figured out how to be a little more chill in the space, if you will. And so I was traveling more calmly and smoothly by relaxing and doing nothing through these shapes in this world. And I had this feeling, I was just like, wow, wow. I just kept saying, wow, like, wow, wow, whoa. And part of me saying wow was like grounding me in not being scared. I didn't want to be scared of it. I wanted to like stay in the letting go and like letting it take me. So kind of acknowledging like this is like awe, like awesome, but like awe, like, oh my God, like I'm floating through shapes and and then they're changing and then there's lights and like, this is kind of cool. And so that was really interesting. But like what I felt like, the sense that I had in that moment, which is such a like a paradox shift from living in, I don't know, like the world I'm in right now and that you're probably in watching this, right? Like the 3D world or the non-visionary plant medicine world. I had the sense that I was inside the medicine. Like that, yes, in the beginning of the night, I drank the medicine. I put the ayahuasca, I drank the plant medicine and put the medicine inside me. But then what happened, what shifted in, an hour or so in, or actually it was like 10, 15 minutes in, is that the medicine was no longer in me, that I was inside the medicine, which if you've ever been inside medicine, let me know in the comments if you relate to this, because I don't really know how else to explain it other than I'm literally consciousness traveling inside of these dimensions, and it's, and it becomes healing later. So I'm inside the medicine. I'm like swimming through the medicine, but there's no arms and there's no water. I'm just like journeying, traveling. And it's recommended to have intentions when you do plant medicine, right? And so I had thought of all these intentions before the retreat. And so that night particularly, I think my intention was around experiencing love or feeling love or opening myself up to love. But I dropped all that, like, because I had other intentions too. Like I wanted to, a lot of people their intentions were like, show me my purpose or what's my next step in life, or very practical things, right? So I had this whole list of things that I wanted to, like, certain things from my past to heal, or certain things from my future to understand and align with my purpose, and just kind of some more general but deep questions. But when I got to this space where I was like floating through the medicine or inside the medicine, and so I realized from that space that all of my intentions were no longer relevant. So I completely dropped anything I had dropped. I dropped it all completely. And I just realized the only thing that matters, because at the same time that this was happening, I should back up, there were like light beams and like laser beams and colors shooting inside of me. It was, and I could see it. Like I looked down at this point, I did have a body, but it wasn't like this body. It was like, there was substance there. And so these, and there was no entities, there was no people, there was no beings of any kind. It was literally colors, lights, and energy. It was energy and lights basically. And it was beaming almost, some of it was like a laser beam, like very pointed, and just generally beaming in inside my organs, inside my brain, inside my body, inside my DNA. I could see it like going into my DNA and opening up. And it was source. Like I was very, very clear in that moment. That's what it appeared in that moment to be for me. And it felt very fucking real. Okay. In that moment, it was what was happening. It feels as real as it feels right now that I'm sitting here drinking a raw cacao, making a video for you, right? Feels real. And so with the light coming into my DNA and like coding it, like it was like recoding my DNA, I realized that every intention was bullshit. It was irrelevant. And the most important thing was to recode all of my cells in my DNA for, with light, like for love, to recode myself at the cellular level. So that's what ended up happening. It was like, and because I knew it was coming from source, like that was just what I knew in that moment, like intuition, whatever, like, how you just know things sometimes. And look, I understand that that different people have different opinions and thoughts about what it means to be in psychedelic medicine. Is it all a hallucination? Is it real? What is it? I'm going to set that aside for a second and just talk about like how I was experiencing in that moment and what I knew to be true in that moment intuitively. So I knew this light was coming from source. I knew that it was coming in and it was recoding my DNA. I could see it recoding my DNA. I could see my cells and my DNA lighting up and being like resynced in like a more cohesive, coherent kind of a way. And so it's funny because if you know a little bit about my backstory, I used to work in big data and I have like a master's in statistics and I was like super into numbers and math and all of that. And so, you know, I used to do a lot of coding, right? And so you talk about like source code. It's like I used to command line code and stuff. And so this was a different kind of source coding. And I kind of had a little bit of a chuckle of it in the moment because I knew it was source code. It was source code. And God, you know, I've heard people talk about light codes and stuff before this experience, but I never got it. But in this moment, it was source was recoding me and recalibrating me and like changing upgrading the vibration inside of all of my cells, like for vitality, for love, for like increasing my frequency. And it sounds weird to say it because I can almost imagine like what I would think watching this, like before I experienced it, how it might sound. But in the moment, it was very real. And if you've taken a visionary plant medicine, you know what I'm talking about. It can be very real when you're in it, like when you're deep in it. So it felt like I was absolutely inside of the medicine and source codes were coming in and I could see it cleaning up my organs and dark energies and old stagnant energies, I guess, were like coming out. I was burping them out and light codes were beaming inside and everything was getting like filled with light, like totally filled, like to the core, to my DNA with light. But here's the thing, like it was a lot of work. It wasn't like I was just sitting back, laying at the beach, like absorbing the light of the sun and it was all just chill and fun and easy. It was actually a lot of work. I would call it, it was hard work to stay in that space. Because it felt like, and this is like so analogous for life. And I feel like this has been such a lesson for me in the integrating process since then. So this was November. So it was like 3.5 months ago that I had this experience. And so what I realized was like in that moment is like, if I stopped focusing very, very diligently and deliberately on relaxing my body and allowing whatever was happening to happen, if I let go of doing, I was actually efforting to stay in that healing vibe. When I stopped that and I just relaxed, a fearful thought would come, a doubt would come. There'd be a thought like, I don't like this, or this is intense, or like, you know, because I'm not in control. So I really got to see how much like my mind likes to be in control. My nervous system feels safe when I have some sort of control, and there is no control. If I try to control ayahuasca, I suffer. I mindfuck myself. That was very clear that that's not the way to do it. So the only way to do it is to relax for me. And so, but if I had a fearful thought, like, I don't like this, or this is scary, or, oh my God, immediately, this was so wild. It was so crazy. Like immediately I would go from this like source code light, illuminating light code, like healing situation where I'm watching my DNA be recoded. I would go boom. And it would be like all dark, like blacks and greens, kind of like over here, like just really dark colors. And it was spiders, like huge spiders and snakes. Now, again, the animals weren't predatory, so I wasn't fearful of what I was seeing. It was just an unpleasant place to be. Like my whole world is all of a sudden really dark with these like underground or like snakes and spiders, right? So it was, and then when I would be there, I would be like, oh my God, my thoughts just brought me here. I would realize that I went there instantly transported from a fearful thought or a fearful feeling, fear or doubt. And so I would drop it, and the way that I would drop it, and this was key in what I wish I knew before my first night, right? So if you're thinking about going, I would recommend, my one suggestion is relax, right? But I don't know if that's going to work for everybody, but that's what works for me. So when I went to the snake place, I would just relax. And instantly, boom, I'm back in. And it's like literally just transported. It's like all of a sudden, it's just like, psh, the whole world is different. And I'm back into this like healing, beautiful, light, space, dimension, world, experience, existence, where I feel like I'm inside of the medicine. I am the consciousness floating inside of the medicine, which might sound really weird unless you've also been there, right? But I'm consciousness existing inside of a medicinal visionary experience where I'm being healed and recoded and rewired back to love. And if even for a minute, so it was like I was on the edge, right? And so I can go to fear or I can go to love. I can go to fear or I can go to this healing vibe. And it's almost like my mind wants to go to fear. And I think that's the mind, right? Like our minds are programmed to look for danger. They're designed to keep us safe. So we're always looking for like what's wrong so we could survive. Right? So the mind wants to go like this. My mind that night wanted to go like this, and I did effort to keep it over here. And the effort was relaxing my body. And as soon as if I did that, but it took effort. It took effort to relax. It sounds weird, effort to relax, but that's what it was. So when I had effort to relax, then I went into this like fantastic healing light explosion, source code, rewiring DNA, recoded, recalibrated vibrations, frequencies going through me, right? So that it was like I was working this edge, and I didn't like it. Like I did like the experience. It was like, intense. I prefer to I guess what I like most about it now is that I have a very embodied experience of this, right? It was a very visceral and experiential learning because it felt like I was in a video game with the threats were real. If I don't do this with my effort, if I don't work to bring it over to a healing place, I am going to go to a mindfuckery, dark place. And I don't want to go there, like this hellish world, right? And so I got an effort to stay here. And it instantly, like it was probably, I don't know, like 10, 15 times that like I let up on the effort and I went into like the dark place, right? And I was like, oh, okay, relax. But like really like legit, like the entire first ceremony that I had, I was in the dark place pretty much the entire time except 15 minutes. So this ceremony, I like kind of figured out, like got my bearings a little bit. And in the first ceremony, I felt like I didn't know if I was supposed to listen to the shaman's icaros, his singing, his whistling, the music, or if I was supposed to focus on my breath or what. In the third ceremony, this one, I didn't give a fuck about anything. I was just relaxing and letting whatever happen. I wasn't trying to pay attention to anything, just relaxing, letting wherever I traveled. It really was like my consciousness was on a journey, and the way that I got to stay in that was by relaxing my body. So I completely let go of needing to know where anything in the room was. I wasn't disoriented because I wasn't trying to orient myself. Like the first night I was so disoriented because I was trying to be in control, like orient myself. This night, zero fucks given. I am just consciousness floating through these healing shapes and lights and light beams and source codes. And it felt like, the shaman literally was like in front of me, right? Like I am in the second row. I was on the same mat all four ceremonies. So I was on the second row. The shaman's in front of me a little bit to the left. I know where he's physically sitting, but I'm in this medicinal, like I'm inside the medicine. So I'm no longer in the room at all. I'm not in Peru. I'm not in the room. I'm not in a body even. I'm consciousness floating. And it seemed like, because I could hear the icaros, the music, and as he's singing the music and the icaros, that's when I went deep inside the medicine. Like as if and probably is true, but like as if his singing and his icaros and the songs he's singing, which are part of the medicine, are driving the medicinal experience. So as he's singing these songs, as I'm sitting there like consciousness floating inside the medicine in this healing land, healing world, it felt like I could hear him, like almost like he was like sitting with his legs crossed, like floating in the sky around. Like it was like he was next to me and then over here and then over here. And I could just kind of hear his whistling. And I was like, oh my God, this is what it means to like, I know this might sound funny, but I don't have a lot of experience with psychedelic trips. But I kind of was like, oh, is this what it's like to be on like a psychedelic trip? Like I'm really on a journey right now because I can hear him like the whistling, the icaros, but it felt like he was kind of like moving all around the room with the singing. And I was just kind of like floating and kind of like like, and so it was like, I was kind of like going down this wormhole, something, and he was just kind of around me somewhere. But the reality was he was in front. I was literally physically on the mat the entire time, and he was physically sitting in front of me the entire time. But in the medicinal space, it was like we were both kind of consciousness moving all around, and we weren't static. We were kind of both on a journey, but it wasn't that I saw him. It's that the music he was singing and the words he was saying were kind of following me, but not static. Like it was, yeah. So it was cool to be like, oh, okay. And really what I learned was, and this is so like applies so much to life too, is that when I don't try to control the situation, it's actually like, it's it's wow. Life is like really cool. Life is really amazing. It can be. And like letting go and like flowing with life. Like, yeah, so like letting go and being in the journey of life, being with the flow of life, surrendering to the flow of life, letting life come as without trying to stop it, and just kind of witnessing it all and letting it be as it is, and just being like in awe of life, in awe of what's happening. Wow. Even if you don't want it to be happening, right? Because I prefer to be sober than to be on ayahuasca. 100%. I prefer it. Like, I prefer to like be like, okay, I'm in a room, like I have my cup, like I prefer to be aware. But I really enjoy the learning and the healing and the understanding and the embodied experience that I get, or that I got from these, specifically night 1 and night 3 on ayahuasca. And really what I got to see is it's one thing to know something, like to know something intellectually, but it's another thing to live it, to have that lived experience of it. Especially like what I was going through, where the stakes were really high. It's one thing to know that, fearful thoughts take you to a weird place and loving thoughts take you to another place. It's another thing to live it, where you're very much like with high stakes in this visionary experience, where if you're not thinking loving thoughts or completely emptying yourself and allowing everything to happen with no control, no ego, no mind, then you go somewhere else, right? Like, because we all can like say, if we look at our day-to-day life, like, sure, like when I think fearful thoughts my day, I can see how that affects my feelings, but it doesn't boom immediately put us into like a room of snakes and spiders, right? So like it felt like a very, very deep and visceral, embodied, like to me, ayahuasca, and I only have these really 2 intense experiences and 2 other like lighter experiences of it, right? 4 ceremonies total. But to me, so far, with my very little experience of ayahuasca, I'd say it's like a very intense experiential learning that goes to the core. Like it's gone because it's so intense. It's not like you read a book and you understand something. You're like, oh, okay, I think I get it. It's like, no, I'm in it. I am so in it. So that afterwards, when I'm in my day-to-day life in the 3D world, like right now, when I notice that I'm having a fearful thought, or I have a choice to let go and be in a more of a healing source code light vibe, right? That I understand that like truly my thoughts and my feelings are creating my reality. Or at the very least, co-creating my reality. Not in a, yeah, I get it, I remember it way. It's like the difference of like knowing gratitude works and actually feeling grateful, having an actual gratitude practice where you're actually feeling grateful for something in your life. It's one thing to know it, it's another thing to be inside of the gratitude, right? To have your consciousness in the gratitude, to have the gratitude vibes, to really be feeling so grateful. So that night I came down fine. I lasted about like 4 or 5 hours, just like everybody else. And I talked to a friend afterwards, had some tea, shared my story with him. Then I went to my room, went to sleep. I did not sleep I only slept in the ceremony hall the first night. And then the next morning I woke up a bit early. I was like, had all this energy. And so I was at breakfast like an hour early. I walked in there and the shaman was in there. And so I ended up I couldn't help it. I just was like, still in my head, just like, oh my God, what just happened? My consciousness just went on like time traveling, space traveling, like dimension traveling. Like I just was teleported into all these like light code dimension things. Like, what the fuck? So I see him and I'm still like overflowing with this like awe, like, whoa, like I really felt like I got like this very deep experiential understanding of consciousness, because I was consciousness just existing in all these places, right? So when I saw him, I just walked up and I was just like, fuck, dude. And he was like, dude? I'm like, dude, fuck. I ended up talking to him for like a half an hour, and it was cool because he was reflecting back things and helping me integrate it a bit and helping me understand it more. And so the way he explained it the next day was really helpful to help me, like, I guess, unpack it, understand it a little bit. And I guess even more importantly is how it's impacted my life, right? So it's one thing to have this really wild, crazy, oh my God, wow night. But what does that mean about life, right? Like, what's the real point? Is the point to blow your socks off? Which, no problem. If you wanted to go have a good time on visionary plant medicines, I'd see no fault and no problem with that. But what is the actual, like, healing longer term impact, right? And so for me, gosh, I've had a lot of health challenges, and I won't get into this and bog down this video with all those details, but I have had a lot of health challenges over the past couple of years. And so this experience with the light codes has been really, really helpful in me getting my energy back and getting my health back. And I've been going into meditations almost daily, where I go into a meditation where I'm embodying that and I'm going into that experience, and I'm like with my mind in a way, I guess, programming or commanding my cells and my DNA to be a certain way, to be vitality, to radiate health and light. And I know epigenetics is a thing, right? So how we think about our genes is going to affect how our genes actually express. So I'm going into I've been doing these meditations since ayahuasca. Maybe the first month I didn't, but I've gotten into it recently, the past 2 months. And I've seen a drastic improvement in my physical health, to the point where now I'm back at a yoga studio going 4 or 5 times a week now, or that's not something I've been able to do recently because of my health. And so not only, like I said in the beginning of this video, not only did the shoulder surgery I had on the first ceremony in the spaceship, not only is my shoulder better, but my health has actually improved as a result, not only of what I experienced in the third ceremony with the light codes, but of actually having like this embodiment practice that I do every night when I go to bed with it. I feel like my whole energy is different. I feel like the way that I see the world is different. I feel like the way that I coach my clients in my business is different. I just feel a new attitude about life and about energy and about bodies and cells. And so for me, I feel really excited about that. I feel really grateful for that. I feel really grateful to ayahuasca. And I feel I'll definitely sit with ayahuasca again, and I'll definitely go back to Peru and do that. It's been really, really impactful. I'm not necessarily like looking forward to it because I wouldn't call it like an enjoyable experience. I'm open to enjoying it. I'm open to enjoying it, right? Careful what you say. I will enjoy it. Remember that Blastoff shit? So I'm open to enjoying it. It wasn't particularly joyful for me, but it's been so transformative and powerful in my own healing, my own transformation, my own understanding of life, my own vitality, my own not mind fucking myself anymore, which I learned the first night, right? And so it's been really, really powerful and potent. And I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think anything is for everybody. I'm not promoting anything. I'm just literally sharing my experience with which was the craziest night of my life, you know? I mean, my God, we are literally fucking energy inside of bodies, okay? We are energy inside of flesh suits, going around in life, forgetting who we are and why we're here, doing all this like 3D life shit. But like really the core of it is we are consciousness being like experiencing the world through a body. You know, and so this experience that I had in the third ceremony, which was so crazy, was I was without the body. I was consciousness experiencing different worlds and different dimensions. And so, yeah, it's really, I almost want to say humbling. I guess it humbles my ego and my mind, but I guess it's enlightening. It was really enlightening. It's really, there's not really a word that I can put on it except that, like, wow, like, fuck. Fuck. And so yeah, I think that I have found ayahuasca for me personally to be a really powerful, potent tool. I chose to do ayahuasca in the first place, which was it surprised me that I decided to do it because traditionally because I'm sober, right? Because I got sober in 2009. And so how I had been indoctrinated to think about sobriety was that anything psychedelic is a relapse. I no longer see that. I no longer, I actually see ayahuasca as a very potent and medicinal plant medicine. I see it as medicinal. In fact, I felt like I was inside of medicine, healing, you know, at a very, very deep level where I have results afterwards of my healing. And so I don't think it has anything to do with putting me in harm's way or a relapse or anything like that. I don't see it like that. But I did feel called to go do it. I trust my intuition. I trust that my intuition will let me know when I'm supposed to go do it again. I'm open and available to do it again. I don't have a ticket. I am not booked up. But yeah, I'm willing to. And I look forward to the new insights and lessons that I learn if that's what I get the next time I do it. If I get to leave with a deeper understanding of myself, the world, consciousness, existence, I'm into it. I'm totally into it. And so my only recommendation, if you've been on this channel for a while, you know, it's to trust yourself, that there's wisdom living inside of us. There's wisdom inside of us, right? Our life force, we are connected to our intuition. There's energy inside of us, and to trust that. Not me, not you, not them, not one sort of path or way, but that to me, sobriety is trusting my intuition, 100%, committed, devoted like mad to following my intuition, no matter what. So that's what sobriety means to me. That's what the journey means to me. And that when I don't trust my intuition, when I don't trust my gut, no matter what, that's when I get myself in harm's way and things get kind of weird and unaligned. And that the journey really is surrendering to the wisdom inside, that there is something in there, consciousness, intelligence, life force. I mean, I really have a lot of ideas about this now because I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been on the spiritual journey for a lot. I don't even know if I have words to really express like how I see life and spirituality now. Just I've changed a lot in the past 3 years. I have a lot more to say and more videos. I'll just wrap this one up here. This has been long enough. But yes, have you been on a visionary plant medicine journey? Please share in the comments any questions you have, anything you want to know or anything you want to add to this conversation to other people who are thinking about doing ayahuasca or who have done it and are in the integration process or in sobriety and are wondering if are contemplating using plant medicine for their own healing or evolution. Love to see you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like it, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a beautiful day.